Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Across the Fence. I'm Jolene Whitney. We begin our program today with a buzz. Bees keep flowers blooming and food on our tables. Farming by its nature disrupts Mother Nature, and some farming practices can be at odds with the health of pollinators and people. Researchers at UVM's Bee Lab are conducting a citizen science project to find out what's in the pollen that bees are bringing back to the hive. Here's Ben Willis with our story.
Okay, thank you.
UVM's Horticulture, Research, and Education Center is a hive of activity. A community science project is underway.
Today we're at the horticulture farm doling out pollen traps that our beekeepers have ordered to participate in our 2024 pesticide monitoring study.
This is an expansion of the Bee Lab's ongoing research monitoring levels of neonicotinoid pesticides across Vermont.
So this year we're expanding our pesticide monitoring project, which means we're going to have a much larger geographical range that we're collecting samples from. So it'll give us a better idea of the exposure levels of bees throughout Vermont.
This is how we do.
Not only is the Bee Lab distributing pollen traps, a demonstration is also underway on pollen trap installation and hive flipping.
This is going to seem crazy, but bear with me.
Led by Curtis Mraz of Champlain Valley Apiaries.
All right, here's the pollen trap. Boom. So there's a bunch of little cones up front. These are like little lobster traps. So the bees have to walk through the bottom and up through the cone. The cone then scrapes the pollen off of the bee's pants into this neat little tray that you can pull out the back.
Over 70 beekeepers from around Vermont have signed up to participate in the Bee Lab's research. Many expressed concerns about the impact neonicotinoid-treated seeds may have on their hives and the environment.
I'm just interested in bee science, and with the neonicotinoid issues going on with with seeds, etc. It just seemed like a way to contribute. My bees can afford 2 days worth of pollen, so why not?
We are pretty concerned about neonics, especially since we're in the Champlain Valley and surrounded by farms growing corn and soy. And our winter losses have gone up quite a bit. I've been beekeeping for 15 years, and this was our worst year.
Vermont's legislature has been taking steps toward banning neonicotinoid-treated seeds. But if these pesticides are going to be banned, then why is the Vermont Bee Lab continuing to do this research? So I'm heading to the UVM campus to speak with Vermont Bee Lab Director Samantha Alger and ask her why she feels it is important to continue to collect this bee pollen data.
So our research has been used recently to inform some of the legislation that's been active right now, but we've been doing this work for a number of years to better understand what kinds of pesticides the honeybees are bringing into their hives. We started this work in 2021, and the project has sort of evolved over the years. So last year, we focused our efforts on neonicotinoids because it's a group of systemic pesticides that's under such scrutiny right now because of its toxicity to pollinators. And so we designed this experiment to understand when and where bees are coming in contact with neonics. And now that we sort of have some really good data after 1 year of that study, we're going to continue the work but expand it. And we're not just looking at neonics, we're looking at all different kinds of pesticides out in the environment.
So what was the thinking behind the decision to expand this project?
So we wanted to try to get the broadest geographic range possible over as many time points and really focus on all areas of Vermont. And so the best way that we could think of doing that was turning this project into a community science project. We've had a lot of beekeepers really interested in learning more about the pesticide residues in their hives, and so it's sort of a win-win with all the beekeepers that are participating in this project this year.
So this pending legislation is not going to mean that every single conventional farmer suddenly becomes an organic farmer tomorrow. Are there any concerns about how farmers are going to have to pivot and maybe start using other pesticides?
That's a question that's been raised in other places where we've seen restrictions or bans on this neonicotinoid class of systemic pesticide. And so if we look to Quebec, where neonics were restricted or banned 5 years ago, what we saw is that a lot of farmers switched to using diamides. But the research has shown through hundreds of trials that when you compare the crop yields of neonics to fungicide only, so no insecticides, there's very few instances when there's differences or improvements of crop yields as a result of these neonic insecticides versus nothing at all. And so all of those data show that we might not need a replacement chemical in this case, right? But in the case of Quebec, we did see a lot of farmers that switched from neonics to diamides, which are in some ways better for the bees, but they're also really toxic for butterflies and moths, so butterflies like the monarch butterfly that we're all concerned about. And so Quebec is now proposing to restrict all insecticides on treated row crops. And so I believe in 2025, those restrictions are starting to take place. So here in Vermont, we might have 5 years or so before we see these neonic restrictions take place. And we'll have 5 years now to see how these further restrictions in Quebec might impact farming there.
I asked Dr. Alger if neonic-treated seeds end up being banned in Vermont and phased out over 5 years, will there be any residues left in the soil? Or will they be gone for good?
You bring up a good point about soil residues. These neonicotinoid residues stick around for a long time, years and years, in the soil, and other plants can take up these residues from the soil like they do with nutrients. And we see that in places like in Europe, where neonics have been restricted for many years now, but we're still seeing evidence that of its persistence in the environment.
Dr. Alger points out that this is more than about protecting bees. Pollen collection allows scientists to enlist bees as collaborators in studying the environment.
By looking at pesticide residues in bee-collected pollen, we're obviously getting an understanding of how bees are exposed and to what extent exposed to different chemicals in the environment. But we're also using bees as a bioindicator of these pesticide residues out in the environment. So what I mean by that is bees are an incredible, for us, free workforce. There's tens of thousands of individual bees that are flying out and foraging in a 2, 3, 4, 5 mile radius from their hive every day. And so by testing the pollen that they're coming in contact with out in the environment, we're sort of getting a snapshot of what kinds of residues are in a very large geographic area. And we're kind of harnessing the workforce of this superorganism to do all that labor for us. And we're getting an idea for what kinds of residues are in this area that could be impactful for not just bees, but all other wildlife and humans as well.
So, Dr. Alger, how many people are participating in this community science project? And for those people that maybe are watching this and would like to get involved, is it too late? Can they still participate?
We have over 70 beekeepers in Vermont that are participating in this study. And we are all full up for this year, but we're going to be continuing this project into the future. And so for next year, we can bring some more folks on board.
At UVM's Vermont Bee Lab, I'm Ben Willis with Across the Fence.
To commemorate National Pollinator Week, which starts June 17th, the Vermont Bee Lab is holding a Pollinator Celebration Day on Saturday, June 22nd at the UVM Horticulture Farm in South Burlington from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Events and workshops will be held on topics such as native plants, butterflies, and bees, both wild and managed. The event is free, but registration is required for workshops. Sign up at the website on your screen. Next week is also Juneteenth, the nation's newest federal holiday signed into law in 2021. The day commemorates the end of slavery in the United States. We will have a special half-hour edition of Across the Fence on Juneteenth, focusing on the Clemmons Family Farm in Charlotte. This site has become a magnet for Black culture and the arts in Vermont. We spoke with the owner and operator of Harmony's Kitchen in Winooski, Harmony Edosomwan, who brought some very good honey-glazed cornbread and talked about how the Clemmons Family Farm has fostered the arts in the Green Mountains. You said this was honey-glazed cornbread.
Yes.
Can you tell me what you make? What's on the menu?
Yeah, so Harmony's Kitchen is an Afro-fusion soul food business. We specialize in soul food, Southern food, and Nigerian cuisines as well. Some of our popular menu items are fried chicken, honey-glazed cornbread, like you see here, and our baked mac and cheese.
And you've catered several events with the Clemmons Family Farm. Can you
Yes.
tell me about your experience with them?
Yeah, you know, working with the farm has always been a pleasure. The farm was actually one of the first people to hire me as an artist. Yeah, so we've done many events. Adventure by Disney, where I was able to cater for groups of people coming from all over the country. They came to the farm and they had my cuisine, and that was just, you know, pleasurable experience for myself. We had another experience where I had the opportunity to teach some young high school student girls how to cook Nigerian food on the farm, which was also such a fulfilling experience for me as well. Apart from culinary aspects, I've also done some work with the farm through my poetry. I'm a poet as well. So yeah, we've done plenty of events like that. I've done some consultancy work through that. But recently, I'm actually was just hired as a kitchen design consultant for the farm, and I will be helping to design the Authentica house kitchen on the farm, where residents will be able to, you know, stay and enjoy the pleasures of the farm, and, you know, really dive deep into their artwork.
And if somebody sees this at home and their mouth is watering just as much as mine is, maybe, how can they try your food?
Yeah, so we offer weekly takeout. Every Sunday, I operate on a pre-order basis. We also do catering of all events, weddings to small events, bigger events. So yeah, feel free to check me out on harmonieskitchenvt.com and also on all social medias with the same handle. The farm was one of the first people to hire me as an artist, and the farm, from the very beginning, they tell us, like, we have value as artists. You know, we should carry ourselves that way, and we should also expect that. So when it comes to advocating for fair wages when we're being outsourced, when it comes to just, you know, giving us all these different opportunities and broadening our span of work, the farm has always been a part of that. And just having a space that, you know, focuses on Black culture, African diaspora culture, in one of the whitest states in the country, it's so imperative. So I'm entirely grateful for the farm, for Lydia, and yeah, I think many Black artists here can truly thank the Clemmons Family Farm for honestly giving a lot of us some of our first starts and helping to deepen and nurture our careers here in Vermont.
We hope you join us on Wednesday, June 19th for our half-hour Juneteenth special. That wraps up Across the Fence for today. My thanks to the crew behind the scenes here at WCAX. I'm Jolie Whitney. Have a good one.